Welcome to the Power of Music podcast, brought to you by JM International. Get ready to explore conversations with those making a difference through music.
Hello, and welcome everyone to the Power of Music podcast, provided to you by JMI, Jeunesse Musicale International, a global network of NGOs that empowers young people through music across all boundaries. Today, we're recording from Harare, Zimbabwe, where the JMI Global Conference is hosted. My name is Ricardo, and I'll be your host. And for this episode, I'm joined by Neeta Ragoowansi. Neeta is Executive Director at Folk Alliance International, President of the Music Managers Forum US, and a Global Co-Chair of Women in Music. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you first tell a little bit about your journey into music?
Sure, my journey. I'll start with the idea that I was a musician, am a musician, always a musician, right? Loved music since a very young age. Piano was my instrument. Later realized I think I can sing a little bit as well and hold pitch, contrary to my third grade classical teacher, Mr. Prunchak, may he rest in peace, who said, she doesn't have an ear for music. What? But went on to become a professional musician, but also really, really, really enjoyed the business side, the legal side. And so I was in a band called Big Village. It was a alternative rock band, late 80s, 1990s, signed to a little indie label called Awayama in Washington, D.C., and won 15 Washington area music awards, the Whammies,
Wow.
as they call them. And so, and it was it was all rock, folkadelic. We were DC's number one folkadelic band, self-dubbed. And we went on to, tour and gig and play amazing shows. We integrated different languages, different instruments from around the world into our set. So it wasn't sort of just the straight ahead American rock sort of viewpoint or path that we took. And that was lots of fun. But I went to law school and loved law school and think it's an amazing education for anyone and everyone. And when I came out of law school, I still was like, okay, but I still want to pursue my musical career, but couldn't help be entrepreneurial. And with a group of other people, we started a nonprofit called Eco Media. Our mission was to promote environmental awareness through the arts and other media. That was our mission statement. And we ran a 12,000 square foot performance art space in Washington, D.C., where I was based at the time, it was called The Warehouse. And we ran a variety of arts programs, but we became the scene in Washington, D.C. The Washington Post paralleled us to Andy Warhol's Art Factory, saying we were the first cohesive underground arts movement in D.C. And so we ran this 12,000 square foot performance art space, and we would put up eco-scientists on stage with buzzy, cool bands that had just gotten signed or whatever to sugarcoat the pill of eco-scientists. And we would have 1,000 people in the door on any given night. It really became this cool scene. And we ran amazing programs for school, for students, for school kids, to teach. They called it E-College E, teaching them about ecology, but using the wonderful power of music to help educate. And it was a beautiful thing. And then I got this amazing opportunity to go be in-house counsel at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, and which is the America's nation's performing arts institution. And it was an amazing place. I was there for about 9 years, getting to be part of all kinds of amazing deals. And that was really the time the light bulb went on for me, and I realized I prefer to read a contract than to perform on stage. Mm-hmm. And so I went on to do that, and my journey really went from there, that I started realizing that it was important, as I was watching artists and the way that art was supported and funded, that we needed to eradicate our world of the phrase starving artist. And so it really became a plight for me to really understand the revenue streams for artists and how we could build more revenue streams, how to maximize the ones that already existed. But so I got involved with an organization and in the very beginning of it called Sound Exchange, which is mandated by the U.S. government to collect and distribute royalties for all recording artists around the world and independent labels and major labels or whoever owns the sound recording copyright, to collect and distribute their royalties for plays of their sound recording on what they call non-interactive digital audio transmission, which was a small little thing in terms of revenue in the early 2000s. But really grew and grew. And it's really internet and satellite radio for the most part in the United States. So that is now actually almost $1 billion a year in collections. And that gets distributed out 50% to the performers on the recording, 50% to the owners of the sound recording copyright, which is either the label or the artist if they're their own label. And I wore 17 different hats, but the main one was I was the head of artist label relations. And that was a really pivotal point on my journey because I got to travel around both through the U.S. and then started to go outside the U.S. to spread the gospel, to spread the word that, hey, we are sitting on a pile of tens of millions of dollars for tens of thousands of artists. We have money for you, and this is why, and explaining copyright law. And I loved it. It was such an amazing time to meet all of the different genres of music and the communities and the organizations that support artists and creators, and explaining to them and having them understand how to really maximize their potential in a way to sustain their careers. And so I used to do 40 conferences a year for 5 years in a row, and really got to go out there and meet everyone and understand that it was important that we build communities that help support. So I started sitting on a bunch of different boards of organizations and then started building some of the organizations that I thought needed a little help in the building area. So now I sit there as global co-chair of Women in Music, which is the leading largest nonprofit for women in the musical arts and industry. And I really focus on building chapters around the world. We have 27 chapters, thousands and thousands of members, and I have at least 10 more chapters in the pipeline getting ready to launch. And we do that all as volunteers. It's a volunteer organization, and we love it, helping to, of course, focus on gender equity issues in our music space. And I saw that our trade association for artist managers in the United States was important. And although it's been around for 30 years, I wanted to get in there and bring it to a different place. And we're really focused on diversity and equity and inclusion, really educating not just artist managers that are professionalized in that sense, but also helping self-managed artists to, as we were building education modules for artist managers, we're like, there's not enough managers to go around for all the artists that exist. So we should be exposing self-managed artists with those same education modules. And so we're empowering artists to be their own managers and building that out, not just in the US, but really I'm part of the International Music Managers Forum, which I just love, love, love. And there's 65 MMFs around the world. And so we're working on building and empowering self-managed artists and artist managers around the world and building that global network to exchange resources. But then my absolute love, and I'll come over here. You asked for the journey, and it's a long one. I've been around a while, but the journey is from Kennedy Center to Sound Exchange to being an entrepreneur in the music licensing startup space, where I was trying to figure out new and innovative ways to create a marketplace so that we creators and users of music didn't rely upon middlemen collection societies. So the thing I helped build, Sound Exchange, right? I was like also trying to dismantle and find a way that we could go direct and do direct licensing between publishers and writers and those who use it, radio, television, bars, clubs, and venues. And we have this amazing platform, and it's out there, National Performing Rights Exchange, NPREX. But that led me to my current position, which I just absolutely love. There's so many things in between, but I won't bother you with all that. But to say that I'm the executive director of Folk Alliance International. And I don't look at folk as just one specific genre of music. It's music of the people. It's almost everything. It's hip hop. It's in the US, and it's music of communities that are coming out all over the world with sometimes a use of indigenous instruments. Sometimes it's the telling and the storytelling of communities. It could be speak truth to power music, activist music, political music, protest music, right? It could be broken-hearted music. But I love the Folk Alliance International organization, but the community around it, which is super supportive. It's really the way the music industry was at some point, maybe. It's okay to make a profit, but it's also about making a commitment that industry professionals who have experience, managers, record labels, music publishers, make a commitment to supporting the artist. And I see it in the most robust fashion inside of that Folk Alliance community that's been around since the 80s, holds this huge annual conference every year with over 2,000 showcases under one roof that is inside of a hotel that is amazing, that it changes cities every year. And it's this amazing community of half artist creators and half industry side, festivals, booking agents, venues, all of the support staff, right, of artists that is working to help the revenue streams of artists, right? Get them gigs, get them a North American tour set up or a European tour. And I love it. And I took over about 8-9 months ago as their executive director with this huge honor of being their executive director, to be able to work on expanding, put the capital I in Folk Alliance International and expanding the networks, making sure that all of us can help each other out and be part of that committed community that's not about a profit motive, but really about just enhancing everything, right? Having sustainable careers and businesses that help each other out in the end and help hopefully create some sense of transformation.
Sometimes when I interview someone, I'm really listening and I'm like, okay, what is that one thing that I want to dive into?
Yeah.
And I have like 20.
Oh, good.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. We'll have to do another part 2
exactly.
or something.
Part 2, part 3.
Yeah.
But maybe to narrow it down, and I'm just going to ask you then, if you look back at the years you've been doing that, and I love that you're doing all these, you're trying to change things so much. So if you look back at the whole career, what are you most proud of? Like what change you think like, wow, that is the one that...
It's hard for me to take pride. I try to look outward and not inward that much, just in general.
I'm not proud of your own accomplishment, but in the sense that that's the one that I feel
that made
really
impact.
made an impact. Yeah.
Yes. You know what? I am blessed that there's a few things, right? So I see impact at women in music. I think, every day there's some amazing story that comes through. There's a member who says, I found we had sort of, we as an organization had built out a Google group, a digital forum in which people can exchange ideas. And we have a member who says, I found my best friend, my roommate, my boyfriend, my job at a major label, this very long list, all of it through the Women in Music Google group, which, every member gets to be a part of. And I love that because it is this amazing exchange where someone will say, hey, does anyone have a contact in branding at Coca-Cola? And another, person, I don't want to say sister out there in the community because we have amazing amounts of men that are members as well, because male allyship is super important. And we, but it's just amazing that I see everyone in the global network that we've built that has gone way beyond me, right? It is a bunch of amazing humans that are pulling out their hammers and their nails to build something, and that we have different communities building in different ways, because that's super important to allow everyone in different countries and regions to work at their pace and the way they want to build their communities and build their resource and their infrastructure to build. And so I think, yeah, that's the one I see making impact, because we're really enhancing creators and business, women in both the creator side and the business side. We're really seeing the impact of their businesses and careers being enhanced, and in that elevating the discussion of what women's rights looks like inside of the music space. We're, and that ability to have women vocalize their challenges in an effective way that's very problem or solution oriented, which for so long I know I'd heard complaints, but we were never properly, all of us in the world, are all humans, coming up with the right solutions. So I'm seeing that impact. But yeah, everything I feel like I work on, I feel blessed that the team of people around me, that we're all seeing a single or common vision and been able to work together with. I see a lot of groups try, and there's so much infighting inside of the organizations that they don't actually effectively, I think of our US government anyway, but they don't effectively come up with the solutions. And I feel like, it takes this kind of synergies and magic to find the right group of people that have enough commonality but enough diversity to work well together and yet come up with innovation. So that's happening at Music Managers Forum. That's happening at International Music Managers Forum for sure. The other thing I am proud of is Sound Exchange, because we are putting important, healthy checks. And I still say we, because even if I left 10 years ago, I'm still part of it. And so, because I'm spreading the word and the gospel, even if they're not paying me for it, and telling artists how to, maximize their checks. Like, you only have so many hours in the day. Make sure your music's getting played on Sirius XM radio in the US, because the per spin rate that they're paying is quite high and quite amazing. And thank you, Sirius XM Radio, but for building your subscribership. So, so it's so it's important. It's an important check that shows up every month in the bank accounts of performers, and that's super important. But yeah, it's all of it. We all work tirelessly, those of us who care, and I think that the most impact has been, putting money into pockets, giving more conversation and actual initiatives and workplace initiatives around the women in music work. And then at Folk Alliance, it's already in an amazing place, but I'm just proud of the strategic plan we've come up with. I'm proud of, the being able to drive forward some amazing mission, an amazing mission, and preserving and presenting and producing and enhancing and growing folk music in the broadest definition of it. Because it's important. It's important for humanity to be connected to the voices and thoughts and expressions of the creative community and what that represents for each community. It's storytelling at its best.
I was talking to someone on the bus yesterday and said, picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yes.
I think a song is worth 1,000 pictures.
Oh, I love that. I've not heard that.
No, I just...
It's beautiful. You just
I made that up on the bus
Thank you. High five. That's awesome.
No, but if you talk about storytelling, which is one of my passions,
yes.
There's so much story. Even if you don't know the words,
Yeah.
hear all this music that we've been experiencing, which is a lot of folk and
it
music.
is.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
A very practical
1,000
question.
pictures.
A very practical.
I think I took at least that amount here in Zimbabwe, and more to follow.
Yeah, that's very true as well. Maybe a very practical question, because I know that the royalty distribution in the US
Yeah.
is a little bit different because they don't have the neighboring rights pack that we have here. Do you have to register separately in the US for the royalty exchange, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
so it's Sound Exchange being that sole collective for that, what they call neighboring rights royalties.
Yeah.
Sound Exchange has upwards of 46 was the last time I looked. It's probably more than that. 46 reciprocal agreements with local societies in each country. That being said, every artist and label is welcome to go direct to Sound Exchange and sign up. Sometimes it makes sense to do that. Sometimes it doesn't, because of some especially because of tax treaties. There are some countries, for example, where it's a nonprofit Sound Exchange exchanging with a nonprofit in another country, if the society is a nonprofit, where there's a waiver of taxes, and you may not be able to benefit from that if you go direct. But that being said, I'm a big believer, just personally, of going direct, because I like to be able to really see all of the data. I like to be able to manage my online account and make sure that there's not like a strange hyphen or something, where the metadata is absolutely correct, so that I'm making sure I can collect all my royalties, or if I'm working with a manager, that they can make sure that my metadata is absolutely correct. So I like going direct to every society in the world. Like if my music's getting played in Romania, I want to be directly with the society in Romania, or, wherever. So I'm a bit of a control freak and a very hands-on person, and me and my team. And I say that because I happen to be a creator too, but I'm not necessarily talking about the fact that I make more than $12 a year. But that being said, I just know that if I had been focused on my career and in that way, and really treated it well, I would want to go direct, because cutting out the middleman is important for me. But that being said, we don't all have that bandwidth, of course. And so then I love royalty agents who go in there and really dig down and look at my statements and, are my representatives in that sense, right? And I'm happy to give a little commission to a royalty agent to be able to really look at my metadata, because there is such a huge amount of black box money sitting at all the societies because the metadata wasn't quite there. And it's difficult for every society to actually look at every single artist's account and fix it and make sure everything's being attributed and allocated properly. So that being said, wait, your original question was
If you left
U.S. So U.S. doesn't have a full public performance right on sound recordings.
Yeah.
And it's one of a few handful of countries, China, Rwanda, North Korea, either Iran or Iraq, maybe both. That's about it, that don't have a full performance right. There was a treaty in the 1960s called the Rome Convention. Countries signed on, U.S. did not, in that sense, on that particular part of it. So what it means is we did then in the 1990s, we did get a limited performance right in sound recordings, which is what Sound Exchange is based on, which was the Digital Performance Right in Sound Recordings Act of 1995. And then it took a while to build a society, so that kicked off in the early 2000s. Even without the full performance right in the United States, I think Sound Exchange collects the most of any neighboring rights society, because it does not get to collect from radio or television or bars, clubs, and venues, which is such a strange thing, because, it's kind of like if Bruce Springsteen, I don't know why I'm using him. Oh, because he was born in the USA. That's why. So if he gets played in a McDonald's in New York, he's not getting a performance royalty. If he gets played in a McDonald's in the UK, in London, he is, that recording is. But because he was born in the USA, he's not eligible in certain countries, because the US doesn't have this right. And it's super complicated. I'm trying to simplify it, but he doesn't get qualified to collect money in certain countries, even if they're collecting the royalty. So say it's the UK, and this is just by way of example, it's not necessarily accurate, but if the McDonald's is paying the local society, which is PPL in the UK, they're collecting money for a performance right. But then really actually, it may or may not be accurate, but normally the money's all going to the record label, but not the artist unless they qualify. And these laws keep kind of switching, changing policies on distribution are changed. So it's this weird little thing that Americans are not getting what they call national treatment, treated the same as a British artist or a Zimbabwean artist. So it is a shame, and the U.S. does need to change our laws, and we've been working for decades on getting that law changed. It's tough.
And maybe just very short, because I want to go into the focus a little bit.
It's a long subject.
Exactly. But is it then kind of like a reciprocal eye for an eye thing? Is then if our artists are not getting money there, so
yeah, it's a very deep subject, but yes, because we don't have a right in the United States in law, other countries won't reciprocate.
Oh, okay, wow.
And yet there was a decision, was it now a couple of years ago, without my notes, it's difficult, but of the European Court of Justice. It was based on a case in Ireland that basically said that national treatment should be afforded, and which meant that American artists could all of a sudden start collecting from societies, but every country's society and their legal system would have to sort of acknowledge and adopt this. There's been questions, as you can imagine, in Europe around, wait a minute, what? Now we have to actually take those black box monies. What each country does with monies for U.S. artists that are played in their countries is different. I think I've heard in France that those monies actually end up going into the French budget for arts education and maybe some other programs. And so, but also it may also be that the French artists are getting paid a little bit more. And so there was, I know, a whole lot of kerfuffle, I'll use that word, on Facebook when the European Court of Justice decision came out, where French artists said, wait a minute, you mean, wait, now my money has to go over to American artists, or some of it? That's not fair either. Anyway, so I won't get into the opinions on that one, but national treatment is still up for debate, even though the courts in Europe decided that for Europe. And they're doing a sort of an impact analysis and more research into what that actually means, what that looks like. And so I think we're still waiting on some decisions to come out on that in Europe. But that being said, there is negotiations constantly between now the U.S. and whatever other country we're in a trade treaty negotiation with about whether we can have that country acknowledge national treatment in the trade treaty and then implement it. So, yeah, it's a really deep subject. But, you know, I think, my opinion, whether I'm American or not, is that all artists should throughout the world be compensated for uses of their music, and as direct and as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
They should be getting monthly distributions with all the metadata fixed. AI is there to help. And I can't wait for AI to start looking at our metadata. I want everyone to open their metadata up to the companies to help fix it so that everyone can get paid. I mean, I think that there's the use of technology. I mean, this is where I was an entrepreneur, but the use of technology to really start pinpointing all the micro uses of music and have that money in micro pennies getting paid in almost real time into the bank accounts of all of the stakeholders involved can happen if all of us just work together and make it work. The technology's been built, actually. So we just need, it's difficult to shift systems.
Yeah.
And I really want to see it happen. I hopefully in my lifetime, because that would be super exciting for me.
and for
all
industry,
the millions of artists and creators and copyright owners. And it can happen on an AI level as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I sit there and go, if we really track the metadata and the sources of which an AI was trained at, and then find a way to actually compensate right through those micro uses and micro licensing, basically.
Yeah.
Although when it comes to AI, I have a whole
It's
other
a whole
theory.
different, exactly.
Because I don't even know if licensing can help compensate an artist and a copyright owner for actually taking away their very livelihood. I'm almost thinking we need to give equity shares to every copyright owner and creator for every micro use so they get to own a piece of the AI company. But you know what? That feels a little bit like it'll never happen. People say it's a pipe dream. I still think
It's good to dream.
It's good to dream.
We have to do another episode about that in the
Yes.
future. Yeah, just to comment on something we discussed back a little bit, as a very short comment, is that we always advised artists, because it's very easy right now with certain software to track where you're getting radio play. Like there's things
Yeah.
like Warm that are, it's not very expensive too. And you can just register in your National Collection Society. But if you then find out that you have stand up number of plays in Romania or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you could just see it from that and then go directly.
That's right. I left Sound Exchange to actually go work for one of those companies called TuneSet that
TuneSet, yeah.
is an audio fingerprinting technology company because I found it so fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's become, even better, all of the companies out there that are, it takes a lot of companies out there, right? But audio fingerprinting technology matched with amazing metadata really helps to all the tracking. I mean, now that there's point of sale software in almost every cash register, throughout every bar, and everywhere that music is played, there's some sort of software. If we can integrate listening into the hardware and software, then it has a capacity to listen and capture every use.
Yeah.
Not to mention if everyone would just, turn their phones on, which almost all of them are.
Yeah, true.
It's capturing that data. So if we could work with the carriers and the cell phone companies, right, to capture those uses as well, we could really get into it. Just so we can handle the big data, right? Just so the hardware is there and that the metadata is there so we attributed it properly. It's a huge problem still in so many countries. I mean, I look at India, for example, it's just been metadata. It's getting better. There's amazing companies doing good work there, but
It's a long way to go,
long way to go.
but we're taking first steps.
Yeah. Just so we all keep our foot on the pedal and keep driving it forward. It's super important. And it's great I think that if people want this, right, each individual should just study and be knowledgeable and, use it as their badge of honor to be the expert in the room on this kind of stuff. If you actually care about artists, but you're not an artist yourself, or you're an artist who wants to transition to something else, think about the ways of making it efficient for artists to get paid and sustain their careers. Yeah. Anyway.
That's because we don't have so much time left, but a little bit about the Folk Music Alliance.
Yeah.
Just 8 months in.
Yeah.
What is the vision for the coming years?
Oh, gosh, the vision. Going to vision. It's definitely to expand internationally, as I mentioned, to find local existing organizations and communities and just make them part of a global network so we can all start really comprehensively exchanging resources and to networks and cross-collaborate and all kinds of beautiful things that can come out of that. The other vision is there's so many. I have a whole strategic plan, which we're publishing online soon at folk.org. So, the vision, I mean, I'd like to see that artists are reconnected to mission-based causes, the use of music to be a powerful force to effectuate change, positive change in the world, is something that I know that in our organization, in our community, it's already been there, but I want to really double down on it. I want to make sure that artists know that when they come to Folk Alliance International, that they're finding their charities that they want to work for. They're finding the NGOs that they want to help, whether it be climate change or women and girls education or, the very long list, eradicating extreme poverty, that they can find those folks who are working in the field and say, hey, I want to use my music. I want to learn what you're doing and write songs about it, record songs about it, do benefit concerts for them. So I want to make sure that we're connecting the dots between the creator community and the mission-based based charities and the folks working out there on those good causes. And that's super important because we do have the power to make positive change, cultural influencers and beyond, right? So super important.
You already mentioned the website. If people want to find out more information or maybe even want to contact you directly or want to follow what you're doing, where can they find the organization? Where can they find you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. For Folk Alliance, you can go to folk.org, O-R-G, and you can find me through there. You can find me on LinkedIn, but also at Women in Music. It's womeninmusic.org. If you're a manager or self-managed artist, super important to go to mmfus.com if you're in the US. But like I said, there's 65 of these out there. So you can go to the website for International Music Managers Forum, IMMF, and get connected through them. info@immf.com, I believe it is, and get connected to your appropriate country's MMF organization. Yeah. Things like that.
As always, the last question. What is the power of music?
Oh boy, yes. The power of music. Okay, so our Folk Alliance, I chose this theme for our conference coming up in February of 2024, Kansas City, Missouri, USA, be there or be square. But the theme is alchemy, a transformative force. And that's because, of course, music has the power to transform and create this positive change. All the pieces around it, right? Music needs, the creative world needs to be part of all of our forming of technology and innovation. I think, because that is where you're going to find innovation at its highest form. The power of music is that power to engage that part of our brains, in a sense, as humans to really work through things in a very brilliant and magical way. And I don't mean magic necessarily in some occult way. I mean that idea of alchemy, that idea of taking something that could be so painful and such struggle and create something that's really good out of it. It's good for the creator and it's good for the listener. And that power of music to transform someone's life, someone's woes, into something so magical is an amazing force. Whatever that may be, we all need it, right? Mental health, it actually affects physical health. It affects change to make a whole group of people better if used correctly.
Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. If you want more information about JM or you would like to get involved, visit www.jmi.net. At JMI, we are on a mission to make the world more musical. That's why we created Mubazar, a digital platform that helps us manage all our musical activities across 80 countries worldwide, connecting musicians with opportunities to grow both personally and professionally. If you are a music professional looking for a better way to manage and promote your music activities, check out Mubazar. Created for music organizers, by music organizers, Mubazar allows you to run music competitions, workshops, camps, auditions, masterclasses, awards, events, and much more. Mubazar offers custom application forms, payments for your activities, jury tools, translations, analytics, and more. Mubazar is fast becoming the best place for musicians to find and apply for music opportunities online, and you can sign up today for a free organizer account by going to www.mubazar.com, registering, and then requesting to upgrade to an organizer on the right-hand menu. For more info, don't hesitate to get in touch via support@mubazar.com. It would mean a lot to us if you could give us 1 minute of your time and rate and review the podcast. In case you have any suggestions or would like to be one of our next guests, feel free to reach out to us through the JMI socials.